They're accessing restricted databases, Elena mutters, watching real-time intelligence feeds in the underground command center beneath Geneva. The aliens believe they're merely touring Earth's quaint facilities, but each visitor carries nanoscale trackers developed specifically for this moment. Lieutenant Commander Raj adjusts his neural interface, fingers dancing across holographic controls. They didn't even scan for quantum entanglement. Their cybersecurity is primitive. A hint of irony touches his lips. Compared to what we developed during the corporate wars, they might as well be using stone tablets. Elena's artificial hand flexes involuntarily, a nervous tick since the cybernetic replacement. As she watches Ambassador Krellnax examine Earth's deliberately outdated fusion reactors. What are they looking for, specifically? Resource catalogs, mainly, Raj replies. Mineral deposits, rare earth elements, water reserves. They're categorizing us, like one might catalog livestock. Across the room, Secretary General Adeyemi confers with the Chinese Premier and American President via quantum-secured channels. The most powerful human leaders look surprisingly small on the displays. They estimate 6 months, the Secretary General announces to the command staff. That's how long before they return with their formal offer of protection. 6 months to prepare for a war with technologically superior aliens. General Santos of the Pan-Pacific Alliance forces rubs his weathered face. Impossible. Dr. Wei Zhang, fresh from the quantum propulsion lab in Singapore, stands quietly in the corner before stepping forward. Not impossible, General. The hegemony's technology is impressive, but it's static. Their databases show minimal innovation over the past 3 centuries. They're complacent. He activates his own display, showing comparative schematics. Their FTL drive. It's brilliant, but based on principles we were already exploring. Their weapons? Advanced, but fundamentally similar to our theoretical models. His eyes gleam with the fervor that had made him the youngest ever Nobel laureate. They have a 1,000-year head start, but they've been jogging. Humans have been sprinting. Elena turns to Raj. How much did you get? 87 terabytes of technical specifications, star charts covering approximately 28% of the galaxy, and, he pauses, a rare smile crossing his face, complete schematics for their primary defense systems, including access codes. The room falls silent. They never changed them, Raj continues. In 300 years. Why would they? No lesser species had ever breached their security. General Santos laughs, a sharp predatory sound. Arrogance. The downfall of every empire in human history. Outside the facility, Krellnax concludes his inspection of Earth's primitive defenses. His aide approaches with their scheduled departure time. Such an odd species, the ambassador muses. So emotional, so inefficient. Did you notice their weapon systems? Chemical propellants and crude energy weapons. At least 3 centuries behind hegemony standard. Yet they survived their development phase, the aide notes. Most species destroy themselves before achieving spaceflight. Luck, Krellnax dismisses, or perhaps they were too primitive to develop truly destructive weapons. No matter, they'll make excellent subordinates once properly adjusted. As the hegemony shuttle ascends toward their waiting vessel, neither alien notices the subtle quantum fluctuations emanating from the lunar dark side. The first tests of humanity's newest propulsion system, developed from their own stolen designs. 6 months. The clock starts now. The hegemony's terms echo in the silent chamber. Sterilization of less optimal genetic lines. Resource taxation at crippling levels. Cultural adjustment programs, a euphemism for the systematic destruction of human identity. Dr. Wei Zhang clutches his quantum tablet so tightly his knuckles whiten. 6 months of sleepless nights, of breakthrough and failure, of pushing human science beyond theoretical limits, all for this moment, when Secretary General Adeyemi requests the cultural exchange. Zhang almost laughs at the aliens' patronizing chitters of amusement. Hours later, inside Mount Fuji's cavernous facility, excavated in secret during the Taiwan crisis years earlier, Zhang stands before Earth's unified military command. The prototype quantum resonance drive hovers in the chamber's center, defying gravity and conventional physics. It uses principles the hegemony never discovered, Zhang explains, fatigue evident in his voice, but eyes bright with triumph. Their evolutionary pathway gave them extraordinary sensory capabilities, but limited their neurological architecture. Humans evolved differently. He gestures to comparisons of Valthid and human brain scans. Our neural oscillation patterns, what they call our primitive brainwaves, interact with quantum fields in ways they physically cannot perceive. Admiral Yamamoto studies the drive with narrowed eyes, and this will allow our ships to match theirs. Zhang smiles, the first genuine smile in months. No, Admiral. It will allow us to exceed them. Their ships travel through space. Ours will bend it. On the testing platform, the prototype pulses with energy. Reality itself seems to warp around it, light bending in impossible patterns. We've already begun production, General Santos reports. The lunar facilities are operating at 400% capacity. Mars colony has been converted entirely to shipbuilding. Major Garcia from Special Operations steps forward. What about weapons? Their shield technology is designed to counter their own offensive systems, interrupts Lieutenant Commander Raj, who hasn't slept in 3 days. His neural implants pulse blue beneath his skin as he interfaces directly with the facility systems. They've never needed to defend against anything else. We've developed quantum-phased projectiles that bypass their shields entirely. They'll never see them coming. Dr. Olivia Chen, Chief of Xenobiology, clears her throat. The Valthid physiology has vulnerabilities they've never needed to address. Their exoskeleton is resistant to energy weapons, but surprisingly susceptible to specific sonic frequencies. We've incorporated this into our boarding tactics. The tactical display shifts to show Earth's first warfleet taking shape across the solar system. Names appear beside completed vessels: Defiant, Thermopylae, Shaka, Leonidas, Sun Tzu, heroes, and battles from humanity's long history of resistance against overwhelming odds. Meanwhile, in Shanghai's ancient Yu Garden, Hegemony Cultural Officer Xandrek observes human children playing among thousand-year-old pavilions. Fascinating how they cling to these outdated structures, he remarks to his Valthid colleague. Most species eagerly abandon their heritage when offered superior hegemony designs. His companion studies the children with compound eyes. I find their young disturbing. So much unnecessary movement and noise. The genetic adjustment protocols will correct this, of course. Neither alien notices the small woman sketching quietly nearby. Dr. Maya Lakshmi, Earth's foremost xenolinguist, recording every word, every gesture. In her earpiece, an AI translates subharmonics and chemical signatures the aliens don't realize they're emitting. They don't just want our resources, she subvocalizes to the hidden microphone. They want to remake us entirely. These aren't conquerors, they're exterminators with patience. Back at Mount Fuji, Zhang watches the prototype complete another successful test cycle. 6 months ago, such technology seemed centuries beyond humanity's reach. Necessity, desperation, and access to the hegemony's own accumulated knowledge had compressed centuries into days. How soon until the fleet is ready? He asks Admiral Yamamoto. The Admiral's face remains impassive, but determination burns in his eyes. Soon enough. The question is, will they be ready for us? The lunar darkside shipyards never sleep. Captain Amara Okafor watches construction drones swarm across the Defiant's hull like metallic insects, guided by AI systems that had, until 6 months ago, been designing commercial spacecraft and orbital habitats. Now they craft weapons of war with terrifying efficiency. Beautiful, isn't she? Asks Commander Jackson, her XO, approaching with 2 steaming mugs of coffee, a luxury on the resource-rationed base. Okafor takes the offered mug, the ceramic warm against her scared fingers. Beautiful and terrible, she replies, studying the quantum lance emplacements being fitted along the vessel's spine. I was an archaeology student before the resource wars, you know. Specialized in ancient warfare. She sips the coffee. Humans have always been good at killing. But this is the first time we're building weapons that might exterminate another sentient species entirely. Jackson watches the construction through the reinforced viewport. Would they show us the same restraint? No, Okafor answers without hesitation. That's what makes us different. We're building these ships to survive, not to conquer. Across the solar system, on Mars Base Alpha, General Huang's voice echoes across the training arena. Again, he commands, as holographic Valthid warriors materialize around the mixed species combat team. 20 human soldiers in prototype-powered armor move with practiced precision, exploiting weaknesses in hegemony battle formations extracted from their own tactical databases. Their left flank defensive stance leaves a 3-second vulnerability. Huang observes to his tactical officer. They've never corrected it because no species has ever exploited it. Their combat doctrine hasn't evolved in centuries. The soldiers execute the maneuver flawlessly, neutralizing the holographic enemies in record time. Among them, Lieutenant Diaz removes her helmet, face gleaming with sweat. Third record time today, sir. Huang nods appreciatively. Again. And this time, I want you moving at full neural enhancement speeds. Meanwhile, orbiting Jupiter, the stealth vessel Nightshade completes its final shakedown run. Its hull, coated in quantum adaptive materials, absorbs all electromagnetic radiation. Its propulsion system leaves no detectable signature. For all practical purposes, it doesn't exist. Captain Sarah Chen watches the readouts with satisfaction. Navigation, set course for the Zender homeworld. Silent running protocols throughout. Ma'am, her first officer questions. We're actually going into hegemony space. Now, Chen's expression remains neutral, but her eyes gleam with anticipation. Our cultural delegation needs extraction, and we need to test these systems in actual combat conditions. Back on Earth, in a soundproofed chamber beneath London's Royal Albert Hall, Dr. Maya Lakshmi conducts Earth's symphony orchestra before an audience of Zender cultural attaches. The composition, specifically designed based on her xenolinguistic research, contains subsonic frequencies that resonate with Zender neural patterns in ways the Valthid cannot detect. As the music reaches its crescendo, she observes the subtle changes in Zender posture, an almost imperceptible straightening of their normally submissive stance. The embedded message bypasses conscious thought. Remember freedom. Remember pride. Earth stands with you. Later, in her secured office, Lakshmi decrypts the quantum-encoded message hidden in a seemingly innocent gift from the Zendar Elder, an ornamental crystal that functions as a data storage device. Hegemony fleet movements, she whispers, reviewing the intelligence. Defense codes, slave world locations. She pauses at a file labeled in Zender script, and a resistance network already in place on 12 worlds. She immediately transmits the data to the War Council. This changes everything. Humans aren't alone in their defiance. On the hegemony cultural vessel orbiting Earth, Xandrek files his latest observation report. The primitives continue their emotional attachment to inefficient practices. Their music employs excessive dynamic range and unpredictable variations, reflecting their chaotic thought patterns. Today, they performed a composition utilizing outdated acoustic generation methods rather than superior hegemony harmonic synthesizers. He adds a footnote. The Zender delegation displayed appropriate appreciation for the primitive art forms. Their rehabilitation continues successfully. What he fails to note, what no Valthid could possibly comprehend, is the fire rekindling in Zender eyes, a fire extinguished centuries ago. A fire that now burns in synchrony with the most dangerous species the hegemony has ever encountered. A fire about to become an inferno. The Europa Research Station burns against the darkness of space, its destruction visible as a new star in Earth's night sky. Flames impossible in vacuum engulf the structure, specialized valthid incendiary compounds designed for maximum visibility. "My God," whispers the Brazilian ambassador, watching the live feed in the Security Council chamber. 37 of our people. Secretary General Adeyemi stands with his back straight, eyes never leaving the display. "Synthetic biosimulacra," he reminds the chamber quietly. "Perfect biological replicas grown from our scientists' DNA. Empty vessels that never lived." "They look real enough," mutters the Russian representative. The families weeping on vid channels. "Are they also synthetic?" "No," Admiral Yamamoto says, his voice hard. "Those are actors. Grieving parents, spouses, and children performing the most important roles of their lives. The theatrics are necessary. Every transmission from Earth is being monitored by hegemony intelligence. The performance of worldwide grief and rage must be flawless, especially because it's built on genuine emotion. The synthetic bodies may not have been living humans, but they represent what would have happened without advance warning. What will happen to billions if humanity fails?" In her secured bunker beneath Washington, D.C., President Alvarez watches a different feed, the Valthid warship that executed the attack. Its weapons signature has been thoroughly analyzed and cataloged. Its vulnerabilities mapped. Its commander identified. "Grelthar," she says the name like a curse. "What do we know about him?" "Third-generation military commander," answers the intelligence director. "Responsible for suppressing rebellions on 7 worlds. Known for proportional responses that typically result in millions of civilian casualties. The hegemony considers him moderate." The president's expression doesn't change, but her fingers tighten around her stylus until it snaps. "I want him taken alive. When this is over, someone needs to stand trial." Meanwhile, Captain Okuffer's stealth fleet has already deployed to their assigned coordinates throughout hegemony space. The Defiant herself lurks in the shadow of a moon orbiting the Zendar homeworld. 3 other vessels position themselves near critical hegemony supply depots. 5 more shadow military installations. In Earth orbit, Lieutenant Commander Raj Patel completes the final phase of the cyber infiltration. "Neural link established," he reports, his eyes closed as his implants connect him directly to the quantum mainframe. Initiating Protocol Trojan. Around him, the cyber warfare team monitors his vital signs. This deep infiltration carries risks. Hegemony security protocols could potentially trigger feedback that would fry his neural pathways. But conventional interfaces lack the speed and intuition needed for this operation. "All hegemony defense networks compromised," Raj announces after 3 tense minutes. "Weapon systems, navigation arrays, communication relays. We have backdoor access to everything. Activating dormant code now." Across hegemony space, invisible changes propagate through their systems. Nothing obvious, no alarms trigger, no security alerts flash. Just subtle modifications to targeting algorithms, microscopic adjustments to shield harmonics, latent rerouting protocols that will activate only when specific conditions are met. "Elegant work, Commander," Admiral Yamamoto commends, watching the operation from the war room. Raj opens his eyes, momentarily disoriented as he returns to his physical body. "The hegemony builds impressive systems," he says, "but they design like engineers, not hackers. They have no concept of someone subverting their technology because no species has challenged them technologically for millennia." On the main strategic display, a massive hegemony punitive fleet departs their central staging area, moving toward Earth with implacable purpose. Dozens of warships, each larger than anything humanity had built before the quantum breakthrough. A force designed not just to punish but to overwhelm, to demonstrate the absolute superiority of the hegemony and the futility of resistance. "How many ships?" asks Secretary General Adeyemi. 73 capital ships, 127 escorts, replies the tactical officer. "More firepower than they've deployed against any species in recorded history." Admiral Yamamoto allows himself a thin smile. "Perfect. They're committing their forces exactly as predicted. He turns to his communications officer. Signal Captain Okafor and all deployed vessels. Operation Thunderclap is now active. As humanity prepares for open war, Commander Grelthar stands triumphant on his flagship's bridge, replaying the destruction of the Europa Station. A necessary lesson, he tells his officers. The primitives must understand their place in the natural order. His second-in-command approaches with appropriate deference. The human response has been emotional, he reports. Their global communication networks show widespread panic and anger. Their leaders are making irrational declarations of defiance. As expected, Grelthar responds dismissively. Species at their development stage are driven by emotion rather than logic. The punitive fleet will reset their perspective. Neither officer notices the quantum fluctuations rippling through nearby space, the first signs of human warships arriving at their pre-designated ambush positions. The Battle of Earth begins with silence. As the hegemony fleet approaches the lunar orbit, their sensors detect no resistance, no defensive formations, only civilian traffic hastily clearing their path. Commander Grelthar's mandibles click in satisfaction. Commence intimidation approach, he orders. Full weapons display. Across his fleet, energy weapons power up in a synchronized light show designed to be visible from Earth's surface. Hegemony psychological warfare at its most basic. Demonstrate overwhelming force before using it. Then, impossibility. Grelthar's flagship lurches violently. Warning klaxons blare as targeting systems freeze, propulsion fluctuates, and shield harmonics collapse. Report, he demands. His technology officer frantically accesses diagnostic systems. Unknown cyber intrusion, Commander. Systems are compromised at the root level. Before Grelthar can respond, space itself seems to fold around his fleet. Where emptiness existed moments before, hundreds of human vessels now materialize, appearing not from conventional faster-than-light transitions, but as if they had always been there, suddenly visible as if stepping out from behind invisible curtains. Admiral Yamamoto stands on the bridge of the Thermopylae, his ancestral blade catching the light of distant stars. All vessels, execute tactical pattern Agincourt, he commands. Weapons free, quantum drives active. The human fleet moves in formations no hegemony tactical AI can predict. Asymmetrical, fluid patterns derived from ancient naval engagements fought on Earth's oceans centuries before. Ships accelerate, decelerate, and change direction with impossible precision. Their quantum drives allowing them to bend space-time itself, rather than merely travel through it. They're everywhere, whispers Grelthar's second-in-command, compound eyes widening in disbelief as human vessels phase through hegemony energy barriers like ghosts. How are they targeting our shield generators? Those are masked from all scanning technologies. Grelthar has no answer. His mighty fleet, the largest punitive force assembled in 3 centuries, is being systematically dissected by an enemy that shouldn't have the technology to scratch their hulls. Aboard the Defiant, Captain Okafor maneuvers through the chaos with surgical precision. Targeting solution acquired, her weapons officer confirms. Quantum lance locked on Grelthar's command vessel. Okafor nods. Fire. The lance, technology reverse-engineered from hegemony designs, but fundamentally transformed by human innovation, slices through space. It doesn't impact the Valthid flagship shields. It bypasses them entirely, utilizing quantum entanglement to manifest directly at the target coordinates inside the vessel. Alarms scream across Grelthar's bridge as his ship's spine is severed in an impossible attack. Emergency protocols. He shrieks, mandibles flaring in distress. All backup systems. But there are no backup systems responding. Lieutenant Commander Raj's cyber infiltration has seen to that. As his vessel drifts powerless, Grelthar watches in mounting horror as the human ships execute maneuvers his tactical training insists are physically impossible. They appear and disappear at will. They fire weapons that ignore shielding entirely. They communicate faster than hegemony jamming can interrupt. Receiving transmission from the human flagship, his communications officer reports, voice trembling. Admiral Yamamoto's face appears on the main display. Unlike Grelfar's earlier transmission, filled with threats and posturing, the human admiral speaks with calm precision. This is Admiral Katashi Yamamoto of Earth Defense Forces. Your fleet is disabled. Your communications are isolated. You will power down all remaining systems and prepare to be boarded. Any resistance will be met with immediate destruction. As if to emphasize his point, a nearby hegemony cruiser that continues firing explodes spectacularly, its antimatter containment precisely breached by quantum-phased projectiles. Grelfar can only stare as boarding craft approach his crippled flagship. The feared commander of the mighty hegemony punitive fleet suddenly faces a realization no Valthid has confronted in millennia: utter defeat at the hands of a primitive species. The boarding craft connects with a precision docking maneuver. Armored figures storm the bridge. Human marines in powered exoskeletons moving with coordinated efficiency. Among them walks Captain Okafor herself, her scared face visible through her helmet's transparent shield. She approaches Grelfar's command chair, studying the alien who had so casually ordered the destruction of Europa Station. "Commander Grelfar," she says, her voice level despite the history between them, "you are hereby taken into custody for crimes against humanity and other sentient species. You will stand trial before the soon-to-be-established Interstellar Tribunal." As human marines secure the bridge and begin escorting captured Valthid officers away, Okafor adds one final observation. "You should have studied our history more carefully, Commander. Humans have spent thousands of years fighting against overwhelming odds. We've had more practice at being underdogs than you've had at being conquerors." She turns to her communications officer. "Signal Earth. The primary objective is secured. Operation Thunderclap is a success." Across the solar system, the revelation of human military capability sends shockwaves through the hegemony command structure. The species they had dismissed as primitive has, in a single decisive engagement, shattered the myth of hegemony invincibility. The galaxy will never be the same. The Grand Council chamber of the hegemony capital glitters with crystalline opulence, architecture designed to intimidate through scale and grandeur. For millennia, representatives of subjugated species have entered this space with lowered eyes and submissive postures. Ambassador Carlos Mendoza walks in with shoulders squared and head high. Born in Sao Paulo's most desperate favela, orphaned at 8, Mendoza had fought his way from street gangs to diplomatic corps through raw intelligence and unbreakable will. He'd negotiated peace during the resource wars when everyone said peace was impossible. Now he faces a challenge even greater: dismantling an interstellar empire while preventing a genocide. Supreme Counselor Vex Thrul. Mendoza addresses the Valthid leader directly, a protocol violation that causes gasps among the assembled representatives. "I bring terms from Earth and our allies." The Supreme Counselor's exoskeletal plates flare in threat display. "You bring terms. You, a representative of a species that barely learned to split atoms before we found you." Mendoza doesn't flinch. "A species that defeated your largest punitive fleet in less than 6 standard hours. A species that has liberated 8 of your subjugated worlds in the 14 days since that battle." His voice remains calm, but carries throughout the chamber. A species that could, at this moment, trigger the quantum collapse of this entire solar system, but chooses not to. Murmurs ripple through the assembled representatives. The Zendar delegation stands noticeably straighter than before, their ceremonial collars conspicuously absent. "Absurd threats from a primitive," begins Vex Thrul, but Mendoza cuts him off with a gesture. "Not threats. Facts." He activates a holographic display showing real-time footage of human fleets liberating hegemony slave worlds. "This is happening now. You can continue to deny reality, or you can help shape what comes next." He projects another display. The Interstellar Charter drafted by human legal experts in consultation with representatives from formerly subjugated species. Equal standing. Knowledge shared. resources equitably distributed, cultural autonomy guaranteed. The choice is simple: evolution or extinction. The Zendar Elder rises first, defying millennia of protocol. The Zendar stand with Earth, as do the Krell, announces their hulking representative. The Ix join this alliance, declares another. The Wawani support the human charter, adds a fourth. 4 of the 7 major hegemony species breaking away in a single moment. A political earthquake shaking the foundations of an empire that had stood unchallenged for thousands of years. Vexthrol's rage manifests as a high-pitched keening that makes several delegates cover their auditory organs. Treachery. The Valthid will never bow to lesser beings. We built this galaxy. We uplifted you from primitive mud. We gave you civilization. You gave us chains. The Zendar Elder responds simply. Earth offers partnership. Mendoza watches the Valthid Supreme Counselor carefully. Intelligence reports suggested the species was psychologically incapable of accepting defeat. Their evolutionary history as apex predators had hardwired dominance into their neurological architecture. This gathering is dissolved. Vexthrol shrieks. All loyal forces will assemble for the defense of Valthid supremacy. Any world that stands with the humans will be reduced to ash. As the Supreme Counselor storms from the chamber, Mendoza activates his secure quantum communicator. Phase 2 confirmed, he reports. Reactionary response as predicted. Understood, responds Admiral Yamamoto's voice. Countermeasures activated. Throughout Valthid space, precisely timed accidents begin occurring at military installations. Power fluctuations disable weapon platforms. Navigation systems on warships suddenly develop critical errors. Supply depots report inexplicable inventory discrepancies. None of these incidents appear connected. None trigger security protocols. But collectively, they systematically dismantle the Valthid war machine from within. The result of exploits inserted by Lieutenant Commander Ride's cyber warfare team weeks earlier. Meanwhile, in a secure conference room adjacent to the council chamber, Mendoza meets with representatives of the 4 defecting species. The Valthid will launch their doomsday fleet, the Zendar Elder warns. It is their final contingency, a fleet hidden in the Cygnus Void, armed with stellar destabilizers capable of inducing supernovas. Mendoza nods, unsurprised. We know. Captain Okuffer's Defiant and 3 other vessels are already in position. The Valthid Doomsday Fleet will never leave the Cygnus Void. The Ix representatives' compound eyes widen. You anticipated everything. Not everything, Mendoza admits, but enough. We studied your oppressors more carefully than they ever studied us. He looks around the table. Now, shall we begin building something better than an empire? As the newborn alliance takes its first steps, the Valthid prepare for a war they've already lost, their pride preventing them from seeing that the galaxy has already moved beyond them. Zendar Prime glows orange in the Defiant's view screen, a gas giant whose habitable moons host billions of Zendar civilians. Captain Okuffer studies the tactical display where 17 Valthid dreadnoughts emerge from quantum space, weapons already charging. The Doomsday Fleet revealed at last. All hands to battle stations, she orders calmly. Deploy quantum disruptors. Her XO, Commander Jackson, looks grim. 17-1, Captain. Even with our advantages. Okafor nods. I know the odds. Begin evacuation support for the civilian platforms. We need to buy time until reinforcements arrive. What follows becomes legend across 1,000 worlds, the Battle of Zendar Prime. The Defiant executes maneuvers that seem to defy physics itself, its quantum drive allowing it to phase partially in and out of conventional spacetime. One moment it faces the Valthid flagship. The next it appears behind a dreadnought, quantum lance slicing through critical systems before vanishing again. Hour after hour, the single human vessel draws the attention of the entire Valthid fleet, preventing them from targeting civilian habitats. The Defiant's shields fail, then its secondary systems. Hull breaches force emergency containment fields across 6 decks. The medical bay overflows with wounded. Structural integrity at 31%, reports the engineering officer, voice steady despite the chaos. Quantum drive operating at 47% efficiency. Weapons systems holding at 62%. Okafor, bleeding from a gash across her forehead, studies the tactical display. 14 hours into the battle, her ship has disabled 3 dreadnoughts and damaged 7 others. But the remaining fleet still outguns them hundreds to 1. New contacts, calls the sensor officer suddenly. Multiple signatures emerging from quantum space. For a terrible moment, Okafor fears more Valthid reinforcements, but the signatures resolve into Alliance vessels. Human ships intermixed with recently liberated Zender and Krell warcraft, arriving in perfect formation with Admiral Yamamoto's Thermopylae at their center. Defiant, "This is Thermopylae," comes Yamamoto's calm voice over the comm. "Looks like you started without us." Okafor allows herself an exhausted smile. "Just warming them up for you, Admiral." The tide turns instantly. The Valthid fleet, already worn down by the Defiant's relentless harassment, now faces a coordinated attack from multiple vectors. Within 2 hours, the last dreadnought surrenders. Across the newly formed alliance, the Battle of Zendar Prime becomes symbolic, not just of human ingenuity, but of their unwavering commitment to protect others. Species that had suffered under hegemony rule for millennia now witness a different kind of power, one that sacrifices for allies rather than exploiting them. Half a galaxy away, Dr. Sophia Okonkwo moves through the crowded medical facility on the recently liberated world of Krellfar. The Nigerian-born cynobiologist had grown up in refugee camps during the African resource wars, her family displaced by climate disasters and corporate land grabs. Now she walks among aliens with the same compassionate determination that once drove her through human camps. Their biochemistry is fascinating, she explains to her mixed-species medical team. The hegemony deliberately withheld treatment for degenerative conditions to maintain control, but there's a simple enzyme catalyst that can reverse most of the damage. A young X-medic, their exoskeleton still bearing the marks of servitude restraints, watches in amazement as Dr. Okonkwo administers treatment to an elder. Within minutes, the patient's chronic tremors subside. "How did you develop this so quickly?" the X asks. "Our own scientists spent decades searching for a cure." Perspective, Okonkwo replies. The hegemony approached medicine as a means of control, treating symptoms to maintain dependency. We approach it as liberation. She smiles, helping the elder to stand. Also, we shared our research openly among 32 specialist teams across 12 species. No single lab could have done this alone. This becomes the alliance pattern across 100 worlds. Cooperation yielding results that neither humans nor their allies could achieve separately. Human adaptability combined with Zender precision. X technological innovation enhanced by Krell structural engineering. Knowledge freely shared rather than hoarded for advantage. On a jungle world designated only as Resource Extraction Zone 1143 in Hegemony records, General Huang's mixed species battalion encounters something unprecedented: primitive sentience with unique bioelectric abilities, hidden from galactic civilization by hegemony suppression. Lieutenant Sarah Mbeki establishes first contact through improvised sign language and electrochemical signals. They're calling themselves the NIMBY, she reports to Alliance Command. They've been aware of off-world civilizations for centuries, but were kept isolated by hegemony quarantine satellites. Admiral Yamamoto's response comes through clearly. Offer them membership in the Alliance as equals. Share our knowledge if they wish it. Respect their autonomy if they don't. This directive, repeated across dozens of similar discoveries, marks the fundamental difference between hegemony expansion and alliance growth. Where the Valthid conquered, humans connect. On the newly established alliance capital of Harmony, representatives from 37 species gather to formalize the interstellar concordat. Ambassador Mendoza watches with quiet satisfaction as former enemies take seats beside each other, ancient conflicts set aside in the face of unprecedented cooperation. "We are not creating an empire," he reminds them in his opening address. "We are building a community where difference is strength." The Zendar elder, now serving as Provisional Alliance Chancellor, raises ceremonial hands in agreement. "For millennia, we were taught that diversity was disorder. Today we recognize it as our greatest resource." As the proceedings continue, Mendoza receives a priority communication from Earth, the latest intelligence. Supreme Counselor Vex Thrall has activated the Valthid's final contingency, a desperate attack against Earth itself with planet-killer weapons. Mendoza doesn't interrupt the historic assembly. He simply forwards the intelligence to Admiral Yamamoto with a brief note. They remain predictable to the end. The Lunar Historical Museum hums with visitors from across the galaxy. A Zendar child presses appendages against the protective field surrounding Dr. Zhang's original quantum drive schematics. Pencil sketches on actual paper, preserved as the scientific equivalent of sacred text. They used carbon marking implements on processed plant matter, explains the Valthid tour guide. Former Ambassador Krell Nax, his once imperious posture now relaxed among the diverse group of students. Deliberately primitive technology to avoid detection by our monitoring systems. A young Krell student raises a multi-jointed limb. "But Professor, couldn't they have just used encrypted quantum tablets?" "They could have," Krell Nax acknowledges, "but humans possess a trait rare among sentient species, technological flexibility. They can move forward or backward along the technological spectrum as circumstances require." He gestures toward another exhibit, a simple mechanical watch next to a quantum chronometer. Most species, including Valthid, view technology as a linear progression. Humans see it as a toolkit, selecting the appropriate instrument for each challenge. As the class moves through the museum, Krell Nax pauses before the central exhibit, a holographic recreation of the decisive moment when Supreme Counselor Vex Thrall's planet-killer fleet approached Earth, only to be sabotaged by their own worker caste. The final irony, he tells his students, is that our greatest strength became our fatal weakness. The Valthid bioengineered our servant species for unwavering obedience across centuries. We designed their neural pathways to prevent rebellion. What we failed to consider was that they could be loyal to something beyond the hegemony itself. The hologram shows Valthid technicians inserting critical override commands that disabled the planet killers from within. Not a shot fired. Not a weapon deployed. The most anticlimactic end to the most destructive war fleet ever assembled. "How did the humans turn them?" asks an IC student. "They didn't," Krell Nax replies. "That's what we failed to understand until too late. Humans didn't conquer them or subvert them. They recognized them as people with inherent value, something the hegemony never did in thousands of years. The workers remained loyal to their function, preserving life. When faced with an order that would destroy billions, their own programming created the conflict that we never anticipated." Outside the museum windows, Earth gleams blue and green against the blackness of space. The planet that had been targeted for destruction now serves as the cultural heart of the Concordat, not through dominance, but through connection. Ships from 100 worlds orbit in patterns that would have been impossible under hegemony restrictions. The humans call it perspective shift, Krell Nax continues. The ability to see familiar things in unfamiliar ways, to question assumptions, to imagine alternatives. His compound eyes catch the light differently now, thoughtful rather than calculating. In 3,000 years of hegemony dominance, we never once questioned whether our position at the apex was justified. Humans questioned everything always. The tour concludes at a striking monument, simple yet profound. A spherical projection shows the known galaxy, with thousands of points of light representing inhabited worlds. Unlike the old hegemony star charts that categorized planets by resource value and strategic importance, this display shows cultural connections, trade relationships, and knowledge exchanges, a living network rather than a hierarchy. Before I conclude, Krell addresses his students. I must confess something. When I first contacted Earth as the Hegemony Ambassador, I filed a report describing humans as primitive but potentially useful. His mandibles click in what humans had learned was the Valthid equivalent of rueful amusement. Accurate in one sense, they were indeed useful in dismantling the most oppressive regime the galaxy had ever known. Admiral Amara Okafor, her face now bearing additional scars from the Battle of Zendar Prime, stands on the bridge of the UES Unity. The ship dwarfs her former command, incorporating technologies from 39 species into a vessel dedicated not to war, but to exploration. Final preparations complete, Admiral, reports her Ix first officer. The Andromeda approach is calculated and locked in. Okafor studies the crew on her bridge. Human, Zendar, Krell, Ix, Nimby, Valthid, and a dozen other species working in seamless coordination. Former enemies now colleagues, former masters, and slaves now equals. Lieutenant Chen, she addresses the young communications officer. Send our status to Concordat Command with my personal note. The greatest discovery was not the quantum drive or faster-than-light travel. It was learning that diversity yields strength when unified by respect rather than dominance. She settles into the command chair, a small smile playing across her scared features. Navigator, engage quantum displacement. Let's see what's out there. As the Unity folds space around itself, preparing to journey farther than any Concordat vessel before, Okafor reflects on the irony that has defined her life. She had trained to defend humanity against alien threats. Instead, she had helped forge a multispecies alliance that transcended anything humanity could have achieved alone. Pride had indeed diminished, not just Valthid arrogance, but human exceptionalism as well. In its place grew something stronger, the recognition that the true measure of advancement wasn't technological superiority or military might, but the capacity to find common ground across the stars. Quantum displacement in 3, 2, 1. The Unity vanishes from known space, carrying representatives of a new galactic civilization into the vast unknown. Together,